How do you break the news to a trucker in Wisconsin that his beer shipments, which he's hauled across the border for years, have just been axed at the crossing? For him, it's not just a job. It's his livelihood, his family's future, and the rhythm of his everyday life suddenly thrown into chaos. Or imagine telling a family in Maine that their local paper mill, the backbone of their small town for generations, is shutting down overnight because of a decision made hundreds of miles away in Ottawa. The ripple isn't just economic, it's deeply personal, affecting entire communities. It's 2025, and while America is glued to election headlines and the relentless climb of gas prices, a much quieter but devastating economic crisis is unfolding just out of sight. It's not making the front page, but it's changing lives in real time. This isn't some distant geopolitical chess match, it's real. And it's hitting American workers where it hurts most: their paychecks, their job security, and their sense of stability. For many, the American dream is suddenly slipping further out of reach. In a bold move, Canada has enacted crippling tariffs and outright bans on key American products. Goods that once flowed freely across the border are now stopped cold, leaving businesses scrambling and workers fearing for their futures. It's a calculated political chess move, but the pieces on the board aren't just abstract numbers. They're real people, with real families, being used as pawns in a high-stakes game. The ripple effects are spreading fast and wide, especially in states that have built their entire economies around these exports. Factories, farms, and small businesses are all feeling the shockwaves. From the dairy farms of the Midwest, where generations have milked cows at dawn, to the sun-soaked orchards of the South, where fruit is picked by hand, the fallout is just beginning to be felt. The uncertainty is growing by the day. In this chapter, we'll break down the 10 American products at the very heart of this dispute and show you exactly which states are bearing the brunt of the impact, where the pain is sharpest and the stakes are highest. This is about more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real communities facing an existential threat. Main streets are emptying, businesses are closing, and families are left wondering what comes next. If you live in one of these states, brace yourself. The crisis isn't coming. It's already here, and it's changing the fabric of American life. Let's start in Wisconsin, synonymous with cheese and beer. For decades, Canada was a reliable customer for Wisconsin beer. Millions of cases flowed north, supporting brewers, farmers, and truckers. Then overnight, the engine seized. Canada slapped a tariff so high on American beer that it doubled the price on Canadian shelves. Orders didn't just slow down, they stopped. Warehouses filled with unsold beer, production lines halted, and layoffs began. The barley farmers now face a surplus, driving prices down. Local trucking companies see their rigs idle, drivers unpaid. The breweries are scrambling to find new markets, but time is running out. The tap has been turned off, and an entire state is feeling the drought. Now to Maine, a state defined by its rugged beauty and deep forests, where generations have carved out a living from the land and water. For over 150 years, the paper mill has been the economic backbone of countless Maine communities, shaping not just the landscape but the very identity of the region. Towns like Milwaukee and Rumford didn't just grow up around these mills, they were built for them, their streets and schools rising in the shadow of smokestacks. The sound of the mill whistle marked the rhythm of daily life, signaling shift changes and community gatherings, echoing across valleys and rivers. Maine's paper industry is a complex ecosystem, connecting loggers deep in the woods, truckers on winding roads, and engineers in humming factories, each link vital to the whole. A huge piece of that resilience was its relationship with Canada, a partnership that allowed timber and paper to flow freely across the border for decades. The border was just a line on a map, barely noticed by those whose livelihoods depended on cross-border trade. It was a place of handshake deals and shared coffee, not a barrier to business or friendship. But in 2025, everything changed. That invisible line became a wall, dividing families, friends, and economies overnight. Canadian tariffs targeted finished paper products, striking at the heart of Maine's industry and upending decades of cooperation. It was a body blow to Maine's mills. Orders vanished almost instantly, leaving workers and owners stunned. The fallout was swift and brutal. Families who had worked in the mills for generations suddenly found themselves without a future. In towns of less than 4,000, over 300 people lost their jobs, an economic shock that rippled through every home and business. The property tax base evaporated, leaving local governments scrambling to keep the lights on and the roads plowed. Schools and community centers faced closure, threatening the very fabric of small-town life. The disruption exposed just how fragile this deeply integrated supply chain had become and how quickly it could unravel. Today, Maine faces an uncertain future, as its most iconic industry is dismantled piece by piece, leaving behind empty mills and unanswered questions. Let's head to Florida, where oranges are a billion-dollar industry. The orange industry was already in trouble due to citrus greening and extreme weather. Canada was a crucial export market, providing a lifeline for growers. Then came the tariff, making Florida orange juice more expensive than competitors. Contracts were canceled and the flow of trucks slowed to a trickle. The market became flooded with surplus oranges, causing prices to collapse. Many family-owned groves face foreclosure. The packing houses are laying off workers, and processing plants are cutting shifts. The future looks bitter for Florida's orange growers. From Florida, we move to North Carolina, with a proud history in textiles. The industry faced challenges but reinvented itself with high-tech textiles. Canada was a key partner in this revival. The 2025 tariffs shattered that relationship. Canada's new policy included steep duties on imported American textiles. For North Carolina's textile sector, this was a devastating blow. Plant closures started happening again. A facility near Hickory lost its biggest Canadian client and laid off half its workforce. The broader economic impact is significant. The chemical companies and logistics firms are losing contracts. North Carolina's textile industry is once again fighting for its life. Let's go to California, famous for its wine industry. California wine is a massive economic engine, driving tourism and hospitality. Canadians have a deep appreciation for California wines. The 2025 trade dispute turned that market into a disaster zone. Canada imposed a prohibitive tariff on American wines. A bottle of California wine became too expensive for Canadian consumers. Wineries saw their orders evaporate and cellars filled with unsold wine. The price for grapes plummeted, putting pressure on grape growers. Rebuilding will be incredibly difficult. The California dream is turning into a nightmare. Now to Michigan, a powerhouse in food processing, especially peanut butter. Canada was a natural market for these products. The 2025 tariffs made American peanut butter more expensive. The competitive edge Michigan processors had was erased overnight. Production lines dedicated to Canadian orders have been idled. Workers face layoffs and snack makers feel the squeeze. Michigan's food processing was a bright spot, now under threat. A political dispute is undermining economic recovery. Let's head to Texas, where the cattle industry is legendary. Texas is the nation's leading producer of beef, with Canada as a key market. The 2025 trade war put a stop to that. Canada imposed steep tariffs on American beef. For Texas ranchers, the news was a gut punch. The beef that was supposed to go to Canada had to be absorbed domestically. Prices plummeted and ranchers faced devastating losses. The entire economic ecosystem built around the Texas cattle industry is under strain. Ranchers are making tough decisions to stay afloat. From Texas, let's travel to Idaho, synonymous with potatoes. Idaho has built a sophisticated industry around its star crop. Canada was a huge consumer of processed potato products. The 2025 tariffs put that leadership position in jeopardy. Canadian duties made Idaho's products more expensive. The impact on Idaho's farmers was direct and painful. Processing plants reduced contracts with farmers. Farmers face uncertainty about what to plant. The entire support industry is feeling the chill. Let's head to Georgia, the peach state. The peach industry is a high-stakes, high-reward business. Canada was a reliable buyer of Georgia's fresh peaches. The 2025 tariffs shattered that stability. Georgia peaches became too expensive for Canadian importers. Orders were canceled, creating a surplus of perishable fruit. Prices collapsed, and growers faced financial strain. The loss of the Canadian market pushed many farms to the brink. Our final stop is Iowa, the agricultural heart of America. Iowa is the nation's top corn producer, with a diverse industry. Canada was a huge market for processed corn products. The 2025 trade policy put a roadblock in that supply chain. Canadian tariffs on corn products were a direct assault on Iowa's exports. Processing plants saw Canadian orders slashed. farmers face downward pressure on corn prices. The economic forecast for Iowa's most important industry is cloudy. From the bustling breweries of Wisconsin, where workers carefully craft each bottle, to the endless fields of corn in Iowa, tended by generations of dedicated farmers, the story is the same across America. No matter the crop or the product, the impact of trade decisions ripples through every community, large and small. A line drawn by politicians, sometimes with little warning, has created a crisis for American workers, leaving many uncertain about their future. These aren't just abstract theories debated in distant offices, these are real people with families and dreams whose lives are being upended. The empty factories, the silent ranches, and the shuttered businesses are the unseen casualties of decisions made far from home. What we've witnessed is a powerful reminder of how interconnected our world truly is. How a single policy can cross borders and affect lives on both sides. These aren't just products moving across borders, they're the livelihoods of entire communities, the backbone of small towns, and the pride of family-run businesses. A tariff on something as simple as paper can empty a local diner, leaving workers and owners struggling to get by. A duty on wine can devastate a grower, turning a season of hope into a year of loss. The ripple effects are impossible to ignore, a stark reminder that every decision has consequences, often reaching much further than anyone expects. The big question now is, where do we go from here? How do we protect our workers and communities while navigating a changing world? Is this just a temporary spat between neighbors, or are we witnessing the beginning of a new era in trade relations that could reshape our economies for years to come? The future for these industries, and for millions of Americans who depend on them, now hangs in the balance, waiting for answers. The next move is critical and the clock is ticking for everyone involved.